Joan Trumpauer Mulholland. We began our History Day project by speaking with our school librarian. She directed us to a book called She Stood for Freedom, an untold story of the civil rights hero Joan Trumpauer Mulholland. Joan Trumpauer Mulholland was a white woman living in the South active during the Civil Rights Movement. The Civil Rights Movement was one of the most influential movements in America. Throughout history, black people have suffered much oppression. In 1896, the Supreme Court case Plessy v. Ferguson ruled that separate but equal was how communities should be divided. Jim Crow laws ruled society and allowed extremely unfair treatment of blacks. Often, lynchings and beatings were gone unpunished. In 1955, 15-year-old Emmett Till was maimed and murdered in Mississippi. He became a symbol of the injustice imposed on black society. Joan Trumpauer Mulholland was a white young woman living in the racist South during the Civil Rights Movement. She was born September 14, 1941, in Arlington, Virginia. She was raised in a racist community. Her family had several black servants in their home, and they were treated as inferior. As a young girl, Mulholland attended weekly church meetings where she was taught that God loves all of his children. This is where she began to differ from her parents' views. She also recalls being impacted by the Constitution. Its iconic line, "All men are created equal," contradicted the discriminatory society in which she lived in. Mulholland said,
"I don't think you're ever really aware of the consequences of your actions. We knew we could be arrested. We knew we probably would be arrested. But where it would go from there, I didn't know. But I couldn't make a difference if I did nothing, and they were asking us to step forward, so I did."
In 1954, the Supreme Court ruled in the case Brown v. Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas, that the principle separate but equal was unconstitutional. Unfortunately, many schools refused to integrate. Local governments threatened to shut down school districts if they integrated. Many student activists remained silent because finishing basic education was essential. Mahatma Gandhi said,
"You must be the change you wish to see in the world."
This is exactly what Mulholland did. On June 4, 1961, 19-year-old Mulholland joined the Freedom Ride, starting in Jackson, Mississippi. She hid journal pages in her skirt to document the violence among the...
There's no turning back. You can't just decide in the middle of it, oops, I don't want to do this, and hop off the bus or something. Once you're in it, you're in it. The worst that can happen is you're going to die. And once you accept that, you don't have to worry about it. So we may as well make it worthwhile.
Because of her involvement in the Freedom Rides, she was arrested and taken to Parchman Penitentiary, where she shared a small cell with two other women. Parchman Penitentiary was located deep in Mississippi. It was rumored that people sentenced to Parchman rarely returned, and if they did, they were never the same as before their arrest. Cells were segregated, like every other facility at the time. Black men, black women, white women. Mulholland was held in one of the least crowded cells. The cells that held black women were overflowing. There was barely enough room to sit down. This extreme crowding created a circumstance that could no longer be ignored. Mulholland was offered a 3-month sentence or a $200 bail. She took the first option in order to pack the jail. The governor of Mississippi at the time ordered Parchman to
break their spirits, not their bones.
Those who were arrested faced grotesque life in prison, but held their heads high as they sang to lift morale. Guards seized their mattresses and bug screens, but that didn't stop the singing and the feeling of hope in the air of the dismal prison. Mulholland received a telegraph while in Parchman that read,
"Congratulations, we shall overcome. We wish we were there, kid, jailbird rather than a bigot any day."
Mulholland sat on death row for 2 months in Parchman, where she was very close to the site of where Emmett Till was brutally murdered a few years prior. This eerie irony set a foreboding overtone, while Mulholland and the other Freedom Riders waited to be released or killed. 2011 marked the 50-year anniversary of the Freedom Rides. In honor of this milestone, Mulholland revisited Parchman, where she learned that her cell was just around the corner from the death chamber. Humanitarianist Margaret Mead
Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has.
The small group of thoughtful, committed citizens called the Freedom Riders bravely took a stand for the thing they believed in, equality and justice. After Mulholland was released from Parchman, she played a crucial role in the integration of Tougaloo College. Often when researching school integration, one comes up with the Little Rock Nine, when 9 black students attended Little Rock High School, a previously white-only institution. Mulholland, on the other hand, was the first white person to attend the colored-only Tougaloo College. On her first night living in the dorms, Mulholland was mistaken as a ghost by a fellow student due to her flowy nightdress and her pale complexion. Mulholland's enrollment prompted many attempts to shut down the school. She received many threatening letters from blacks wary of her motives and whites who knew this was a significant step towards equality. In 1962, Mulholland was invited to join the sorority Delta Sigma Theta. While Mulholland was attending Tougaloo, she met Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the leader of the civil rights movement. She graduated from Tougaloo in 1964. Mulholland also participated in the May 28, 1963 Woolworth Counter sit-in. One of the most iconic pictures from the civil rights movement came from this event. It features 3 young students sitting at the counter, solemn-faced, while food and drinks were poured on them. Mulholland is in the center of this picture, facing away from the camera. Mulholland recounts over 200 people pouring into Woolworths, vying to hurt her and the other protesters. Police and Secret Service members stood idly by and helped pack more people into the chaotic store. Activist Memphis Norman was pulled from his seat at the counter, dragged outside, and severely beaten. Mulholland quickly took his vacant seat at the counter, sitting between Ann Moody and NAACP Field Secretary John Salter. Mulholland and Moody were dragged outside by their hair, where they were at the mercy of violent racists. Thankfully for Mulholland, the fact that she was a white woman prompted police interference. This provides juxtaposition to the police ushering people into the store earlier. Mulholland's involvement in such significant events resulted in the seeking of her execution by the Ku Klux Klan in the summer of 1963. Mulholland continued to support the civil rights movement through registering blacks to vote after the passage of the Voting Rights Act in 1965, and she was a part of the famous march from Selma to Montgomery, also in 1965. Later in September of 1965, the Ku Klux Klan bombed the 16th Street Baptist Church, killing 4 young girls in the explosion. Mulholland recalls their funeral as the saddest day of the civil rights movement. Mulholland collected some pieces of shattered stained glass window of the church and fashioned it into a necklace which she wore for years after the movement. She then donated the necklace to the Smithsonian, where it's currently on display. Mulholland was involved in some of the most significant and earth-shattering events in American history. Just through the color of her skin, Mulholland was able to reach others in the South that Dr. King, Malcolm X, and Rosa Parks weren't able to influence. For many Southerners, the actions of civil rights leaders and activists didn't have much of an impact. Mulholland convinced an unreachable audience of the unjust horrors of racism and its toxic grasp on society. Today, Mulholland continues to encourage equality and serves people all over the world. Her legacy inspires us to improve our community through serving others selflessly and promoting the importance of equality. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said,
Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others?
Joan Trumpauer Mulholland has dedicated her life to serving others and inspires us to do the same.